Joaquin Niemann wins for the 5th time on the LIV Golf Tour. And I don't know how many starts they've had. Is it 9 at this point? Probably, maybe 10. So he's won half the time virtually.
He has, and this is again a stat. Sean Lowry's our guy who sends me LIV stats every week.
I love that you get LIV stats every week from.
It's so good.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Sadiq Bey coming off the bench. Alvarado missed a lot of time. Jordan Hawkins has had his moments. So, and remember, they picked out even a guy like Kevon Looney off the bench. So, to me, they could be there. You know what? And it's crazy because last year I was so big on them, and now I'm off of them, but I'm going to say it. Fly Pelican! 7-1. Fly Pelican! Fly Pelican fly! 7-1? What's the...
Here's why JY is great. Because sometimes I almost, it's tough when I sell JY, because now what will happen is, right? I mean, listen, it's the middle of the summer. You know what I mean? And what's going to happen in 2 months from now, JY's going to go, now listen, me and K-Dub love these Pelicans. I'm like, when did I say that? When did I don't remember that one, JY.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
So I drafted Aaron Jones in my Dynasty League, but he's like my 4th running back, to let you know that people don't really believe in him. And by the way, you play in a Dynasty League, I always play to win this year. I don't worry about next year. I want to win now. Flags fly forever. I'll worry about next year. So, but I got Aaron Jones last year, 1138. So he's going to drop that down by almost 50%, not to get this total here. Yeah, I think he gets. I'll take the over.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. The NFL is back tonight. The preseason begins. It is the Los Angeles Chargers in the Hall of Fame game taking on the Detroit Lions. The point spread is out. The Lions are a 1.5 favorite. Why? I don't know, but okay, sounds good. Total 32.5 in the game. Always first game is very low total. I do understand that. Here's Jim Harbaugh. He can't contain his excitement to see his guys back out there.
I hate to use the word comfortable because I don't associate it with football, but I associate it in the terms of confidence. Everything you're doing for a second time. Everybody that was here last year. I mean, they know the system. They know the plan better than they did a year ago. I know I got K-Mac. I got Derwin, Justin, the other elite 10. There's a confidence there. So I would associate. Anytime you're doing something for the second time, then you're doing it. You've got experience of doing it the first time.
All right, let's bring in Michael DeCourcy to talk about the Hall of Fame game briefly, and then we'll move on to the rest of the NFL. Mike, I checked your DraftKings account, your FanDuel accounts. I saw you're all in tonight on tonight's Hall of Fame game. Everything you got in the wallet, in the accounts, are all going on this game tonight.
I always wonder who does take some action on a game like this because there's so little not about the teams necessarily, where the Chargers might go or where the Lions might go. It's not that. It's who's going to play and how are they going to play and what are the priorities for the teams involved. And for me, the priorities are establishing backup quarterback play. That's your number one thing. In the case of the Lions, they have a terrific quarterback in Jared Goff. And then from there, a lot of questions. Herndon Hooker in his second year has only thrown 9 passes. Kyle Allen, good a third guy as you can have, but what if he has to play for you? He threw 1 pass a year ago. It was a completion for a first down, but it was 1 pass. So you worry about that. And on the other side, they're going to play Trey Lance for the Chargers tonight, which says a lot about how they feel about their 1 and 2. Very, very confident there for good reason. But Trey Lance, a player who it's an interesting situation with him. he has only been around for a little while. He's still only 25 years old, and he was the number 3 overall pick in the draft not that long ago. Now he's the third guy for a specific team in the Chargers. So a lot for him to accomplish tonight and maybe gain back some of what he's lost in his time in the NFL.
Yeah, really good breakdown, but I'll never get that time back in my life that we just talked about the NFL preseason game #1. Is it college basketball season yet, Mike? No, I'm just kidding. All right, so let's get to some real stuff here. So the Lions, certainly are going to have their work cut out for them. We're the up-and-coming team in the NFL. They had this wonderful offensive coordinator and all of these talented offensive linemen, and then one thing has led to another, and they finally are now feeling some exodus. And, quite frankly, they've been the darling of the NFL, but they didn't win a Super Bowl, Mike. They didn't win one yet. And so now the pressure is going to start to come on them like it comes from Baltimore, like it comes from Buffalo. The Lions not quite there yet. Like, for example, if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, no one's going to get upset, but they're getting to that point where they got to start winning. They are favored to win the North. Green Bay is there, Minnesota is there, and we think the Bears will be better, but probably not good enough to win the division. Is that the way that you have it stacked up based on the odds, or do you like somebody else?
I like the Lions to win it, but one of the things that caught my eye immediately, I saw their win total 10.5, and I'm like, really? 10.5 for a team that good, that talented, that proficient, that confident? And then you look at the schedule. Craig, the schedule is almost mean. They've got to play they have to play the Eagles. They have to play the Commanders. They have to play the Ravens and the Chiefs. It's a really difficult schedule. And then obviously you have the home and homes within your division. I'm not sure it can get much harder than that. And that's why the number's so low. And that's why, to me, although I think they will win the division, I'm not sure it's a good they are the best team in the NFC to be a plus to win the division. But that schedule makes it really difficult and maybe opens the door for the Packers to sort of steal it, or the Vikings if J.J. McCarthy is outstanding. In either case, I would stay away from both of those numbers because, like I said, the team is terrific, and maybe they can top 10.5. But man, that schedule is so hard.
Yeah, and the Vikings will have something to say about it. McCarthy will be the starter for them this season. He has some pretty high, honestly, prop totals here, Mike. When I look at it, 36.50 for passing yards, 24.5 passing touchdowns. That's not a ton for a first-year guy. Comeback player of the year plus 850. Boy, it's hard. I didn't see enough of him to really know, Mike, honestly. I mean, he was good in college, yes. But basically the reason why everyone thinks this guy is going to be good is because of the coach. Now, that's hold true sometimes, but not every time. Is O'Connell that good of a coach that we could just bank on this? I don't know the answer to it. Do you think so?
Well, he's a terrific coach, Craig, but also the assets around him are fantastic. I mean, you're throwing to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. They even go strong into the third wide receiver in Naylor. It's a great group, and I think that's why the numbers for him are so high. If Sam Darnold can do this, why not a first-round pick? It's harder for McCarthy because he hasn't played at this level, and he will face things that he's never seen before, and that's why I would be a little bit averse to that, to the numbers that are established, especially the yardage number. That one worries me a little bit. But I think they're going to do well with him because they have so much around him and because they know how to transition. Darnold was a disappointment before he got to Minnesota. And I think that what they did, honestly, Craig, was the right move. I would not have invested big money in what Sam Darnold did a year ago. You had 4 or 5 years of one Sam Darnold, 1 year of this Sam Darnold. Even though I loved him coming out of college, I can't invest hundreds of millions in him when I've got a guy as gifted as McCarthy and as promising as McCarthy to move along to.
In the AFC West picture, it's become clear that now it's a 3-team race, which we couldn't have said the last few years. It felt like even though the Chiefs got as far as they did, that they didn't have the season offensively that most people thought that they would. And that has opened the door, maybe, Mike, maybe for the Chargers to take that next step. Hey, look where the Chargers are in the odds, plus 290 to win the West. If you looked at the West in the past, Mike, it was Chiefs minus 150, 160. and then
Right.
either the Chargers or the Broncos at 4-1 or 5-1. Not so much anymore. I wonder if this is a matter of the Chargers being better under Jim Harbaugh or the Chiefs taking a little bit more of a step back.
I think it's more the step back aspect of it. I mean, you think about it a year ago, how many times they had to escape with one score wins, and not always against great teams. I mean, it's one thing to win a one score game against an outstanding team like, say, the Eagles. But they had one score win against the Panthers, for goodness sakes, when the Panthers were completely lost. So I would worry about Kansas City without a doubt. And I might be inclined to invest a little bit in that divisional number with the Chargers. Again, partly because of schedule, and also because it's about time Justin Herbert wins something, right? He's been in the league for 5 years, and he hasn't won a playoff game, hasn't won anything significant. So I think they're ready to take a step forward. They have a nice core of young receivers. They're very young, and that's a little bit disconcerting. But they do have talent. McConkey is outstanding. They drafted a wide receiver in the second round, Trey Harris from Ole Miss. So I think there's a chance that they can make the move.
I really like that aspect of what we would think about the West, and I just wonder if we'll ever be talking about the Raiders this season. That's what I want to do. All right. Mike, thanks again. I know we'll talk about your Steelers next week here on the show. Thanks for coming on NewsWire.
Thanks, Craig. Let's
take a quick time out here on the show. Plenty more to come. We're going to talk some baseball with Tom Vecchio and a whole lot more. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid. We'll take a break and tell you about another trade that's been broken in baseball. We'll have it for you next time.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip, try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
To be able to get in the college football playoff. Of the 3 games I mentioned, if they win at least one of those, guess what? They'll finish 10-2, and they'll be in the college football playoff without fail. So I think when it all comes down to it, that's really what this is about, team success as much as it is individual success. And if Arch has this team playing well and winning 10 games, I think the Heisman numbers are going to be there to back that up just based off of the offense that they play and how they move the football.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Over a full season, is he going to be Mike Piazza? No, of course not. But I think he's going to be a guy who can help your team here. My only problem really with Alvarez is this, as Craig and I have talked about so many times, catcher is deep. If you're in a 2-catcher league, by the way, please, for the love of God, I never understood why anybody plays in 2-catcher leagues. But in a 1-catcher league, who's the catcher you're dropping?
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. As the Major League Baseball trade deadline is approaching at 6 p.m. Eastern, Robert Murray, who was on our show yesterday from Fansided, reports that Kyle Finnegan's going from Washington to Detroit. Good news for the Tigers. They need some help in that bullpen, and certainly Finnegan's done a good job for Washington over the last couple of years. Now let's see if any of these moves that were made will affect the odds or how the thinking should be in terms of betting. And let's get to Tom Vecchio, who joins us. You can catch Tom this weekend and every weekend hosting shows talking baseball and giving you the very latest odds on Pro Baseball Today. Tom, thanks for coming on the show. And, it seems like, slow drip here a little bit, but, it seems like every hour we are getting something. It's not like everyone's complaining it's like dead silence. Not really. It feels like every 60 minutes or so we get something. If we can do that all the way through 6, I'm good with that.
Yeah, we also got a number of trades yesterday into the night. So, like, there's been a good volume of trades. Obviously, some of them are very impactful, with Suarez going, back to the Mariners. The Mets and Phillies both acquiring closers. There's been more trades this morning. I think we've had a really solid deadline so far.
So trades today, looks like we just had one here with Finnegan. I don't know that makes a huge difference for Detroit. It just means that they're serious, which they should be because they're going to chase a World Series this year. Okay, Shane Bieber, let's start there. I don't know that this is an overly meaningful deal. He's coming off injury again, and I know it's been a lot of that, Tom, the last few years, but feels like Toronto's in a 5-game series in the playoffs or a 7-game series, and, maybe he gets game 3 or something like that. It's like depth for me.
Right, yeah. So Shane Bieber, 2 days ago, he had a rehab star, 57 or 58 pages, forget what it was. He does have a player option for next year. So to me, this seems like they just need a little bit of depth because we don't know when he's going to be back, right? That's what it really comes down to. We don't know when he's going to be back. It could be in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month from now. But going into the playoffs, having another pitcher that has experience and can give you some amount of length. And, what I would ultimately probably end up seeing or would like to see would be, Gossman game 1, then they have maybe Scherzer game 2, Jose Barrios 3, and then maybe you have a Bassett Bieber combination for game 3 or 4, whatever it is, where you don't need to have 6 innings from either of them. You get 3 from one, 3 from the other, you get the bullpen involved. And that's really where the quality that Bieber brings, again, he's not going to be fully stretched out. So you have him in the capacity that brings the best from him, and then you can mix and match out of the bullpen. That's what I realistically see happening.
Eugenio Suarez was traded, and this is a player that could make a big impact for the Seattle Mariners. He's obviously familiar with Seattle, and I guess I'm happy for them, Tom, because it does feel like they've come this close and not pushed the foot down. I don't know what else they'll do here at the deadline, but it tells me that they're serious about taking a shot here.
It's great for the Mariners. Like, this is what we've always been asking from them over the past few years. You go out and get Naylor, you go out and get Suarez. And, frankly, I think the division is still up for grabs. Like, the Astros have put together a great season, but they still have, 17 or 18 players on the IL. It's been great thus far, but attrition is starting to get to the Astros, where I think they may start to drop off. And we've seen it, coming out of the All-Star break, where they have not been playing great. They have not been playing great. They've been losing games. They have not been hitting. And now we're seeing reports that Isaac Paredes is going to be out for like 6 months because of this hamstring issue. So if there's any opening for the Mariners to jump, it's right now.
Mets and Phillies both make bullpen trades. I think the Phillies may have got the best reliever of the deal. Yeah. But the Mets certainly got better by getting Ryan Helsley. I mean, I think I saw Ryan Stanek say yesterday maybe he'll pitch the 4th inning. That's fair. I mean, if you can't get starting pitching and the price is too steep, you improve the bullpen. It seems like that's what both teams did.
They did it along with the Padres. I really think this sets like an arms race that we're having, and really sets up to the path that each team is going to have to take, because getting that bye, having that second best record, being the division winner, especially when it comes to the Mets and or the Phillies, and not having to play that extra round is massive. And the same thing can be said about the Cubs and the Brewers, because if the Mets don't win the division, they're going to have to play in the wild card. They're going to have to go through the Cubs in the second round. And this is just to get to the NLCS. And the same thing can be said about the Phillies, the Brewers, the Cubs, wherever it might be. But having that depth in the bullpen is massive. I think all teams made great moves, but it's about having, the chips fall in your favor at a certain point.
All right, the Yankees will wait on them to see what they do today, but they do have a game to play, by the way, today, Tom. So they'll, the field while Brian Cashman and company are in the war room getting things figured out. The Yankees certainly are in a position that they're familiar with, and a lot of this is going to hinge on the injury status of Aaron Judge. They're saying all the right things, but Tom, as somebody who's covered baseball for a long time, you really don't know when or if Aaron Judge is going to come back and how healthy he is. In fact, I believe there was a report this morning that did not indicate that he'd be back for that Rangers series next week. So we'll see.
Right. Yeah, I saw a report saying he'd be back on the 5th, but even if he does come back on the 5th, is he going to be 100%? The answer is no, right? We saw with Bryce Harper, he had some elbow issues. Now, obviously, it was a significant surgery. But if Judge comes back on the 5th, the 6th, 7th, whatever it is, and he's 75%, he's obviously only going to be playing DH. That's been the report thus far, which means the outfield is going to have to change, which means Stanton is going to play somewhat in the outfield, and things are going to be moving all around. And I frankly just don't think it's a good spot to be in. As for today's game, there's going to be potential for a lot of rain. Stroman versus Vecchio. I don't see this as a high-scoring affair. I know we had a lot of runs last night, but last night's game was kind of crazy. So I kind of like the under today, and there's just been no consistency with either lineup that is drawing me saying, like, oh, they're going to score runs today.
Got it. All right. Well, we'll see today when the Yankees, if they get that game in between the Yankees and Rays. I know the Braves play tonight on the road against Cincinnati. Look, if you want to build a narrative here, Tom, the Reds got to be feeling good. They're actively players at the trade deadline. Whether Littell is there or not in time for the game, I think is irrelevant. And the Braves are going the other way. The Braves I don't think the Braves are selling at all. It seems like they're just building for next year. But if they were to trade a player or two, they could be operating light tonight in Cincinnati.
They very well could be. I would say they're already operating a little bit light with Acuna out. And, Andrew Abbott's a super solid pitcher. I don't see a whole lot of runs being scored in this game. I see this as kind of like the calm before the storm. Obviously, they have the game over the weekend at the Bristol Raceway. So, that's the big moment for, this upcoming weekend. And again, if the Braves do make trades, that line is going to be just a bit weaker, even without Acuna. So, not a whole lot of runs being scored tonight. Andrew Abbott has been awesome this year.
Yeah, and Rangers-Mariners tonight, final game here, real quick, Tom. Mariners minus 152. Speaking of boosts, hopefully Suarez can get in there tonight.
Yeah, hopefully he gets in there. Obviously, like you said, he's familiar with the ballpark, but lack of runs being scored. Rangers traveling from last night after salvaging the series versus the Angels, not a whole night or throughout the entire weekend.
All right, Tom, great to see you. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Tom Vecchio joining us. You can catch up on Pro Baseball Today every weekend. We'll take a quick time out and wrap up first hour of the show next here on NewsWire. Don't go away.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
To be able to get in the college football playoff. Of the 3 games I mentioned, if they win at least one of those, guess what? They'll finish 10-2, and they'll be in the college football playoff without fail. So I think when it all comes down to it, that's really what this is about, team success as much as it is individual success. And if Arch has this team playing well and winning 10 games, I think the Heisman numbers are going to be there to back that up just based off of the offense that they play and how they move the football.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Over a full season, is he going to be Mike Piazza? No, of course not. But I think he's going to be a guy who can help your team here. My only problem really with Alvarez is this, as Craig and I have talked about so many times, catcher is deep. If you're in a 2-catcher league, by the way, please, for the love of God, I never understood why anybody plays in 2-catcher leagues. But in a 1-catcher league, who's the catcher you're dropping?
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We're keeping an eye on all the trades in Major League Baseball as we roll on here on the show. Also going to bring in Brady Kannon to talk some National Football League and some golf this weekend as well. But first, let's check in with our friends from Front Office Sports, which you can catch every single day here on SportsGrid. The NBA is going to play at least 6 regular season games in Europe over the next few seasons, including games between the Memphis Grizzlies and Orlando Magic this season. For an update, we check in with our friends at Front Office Sports as to what the international games could potentially look like with the NBA in the immediate future.
This is Commissioner Adam Silver is reportedly meeting with officials in Europe about a potential NBA EuroLeague. So let's bring in FOS reporter Alex Schiffer for more on this. So Alex, these new in-season international games seem to be a pretty interesting idea. Tell us a little bit more about what the NBA is doing here.
Yeah, they're adding games in Berlin and Manchester. They've played in Berlin a few times over the years, but never in the regular season. And now they're going back to Manchester for the first time since 2013, also the first regular season game. It's kind of like if you're a European city and you haven't had an NBA game yet, we might be coming to you to see what you have to offer. And it's going to be interesting, too, because, you look at the Orlando Magic playing. I didn't even think about this until I saw the release. Obviously, they have the Wagner brothers. Germany's got a really good team. I think people forget they won the World Championships a couple years ago in the Philippines. So I'm curious to kind of see how this goes. I don't think people think Orlando Magic European power, but they might draw really well for that game.
Yeah, this will be the first regular season game in the country. And of course, it is the 14th game in Germany going back to 1984. And you look at what the NBA is trying to do to expand internationally, Schiffer. I'm curious your thoughts on what they're having the expectations of a few games over the next course of the couple of years in international countries, how important it is to get this right in terms of which teams are playing in those countries, how they're marketing it to continue to grow their fan base internationally.
Yeah, it's interesting, Renee, because I think they're trying to do as much homework as they can. At the same time, given the amount of money we're talking about that's going to go into this thing, I don't think you can just take one regular season game and attendance numbers from that and merchandise sales and whatever and say, we have enough here to determine that this is a city we're going to go into if this happens. I think it's part of the equation. I think that's fair to say. But I think this idea that it's a slam dunk that if they draw well in Manchester's going to get a team in this new look league or whatever is a bit of a stretch. But I do think that they're trying to get a temperature around Europe where they haven't been in a minute or at all and kind of see how to go about this.
All right, so let's talk about that because you mentioned this EuroLeague here just a few moments ago. There's reports that Adam Silver is meeting with officials with FIBA and other teams in other cities throughout Europe about this creation of this NBA EuroLeague. What do we know so far about the NBA's interest in this? How feasible is this likely to happen? And what cities likely could potentially get some teams here?
Yeah, Adam Silver, this has been the drum he's been beating. It's funny, Adam Silver's kind of done a 180. First, it was domestic expansion with Seattle and Las Vegas. They're looking into that, but there's a lot of skepticism. It happens now, and now they're trying to go more into Europe. I've talked to some international scouts who know the European basketball scene better than me. They all think it can work in some capacity, and it really depends upon where they go. To your point, London's been talked about a lot. London and England is obviously known for soccer more so than basketball, but there are, Nick Nurse coached in London or in England. There were some interesting names from the NBA who've come out of there in some capacity or have ties there. So I think that this is going to be very interesting because EuroLeague, is already there. There's some teams with some really strong tradition and fan bases like Barcelona and Real Madrid where Luka played. But I think that, expansion is tough in general. You look at expansion teams like, the Charlotte Bobcats, now Hornets were the last NBA expansion team. I don't even know if they ever won a playoff series since they became a thing in like 2004. So I think that where they go is going to determine a lot of this, but I don't, do you go to Barcelona or Real Madrid, two huge European cities when those clubs are already there with all their history? Remember Barcelona had Ricky Rubio back in the day, giving some throwbacks out now, but I think that it's going to be very interesting of what this looks like if it happens because some of the best cities already have a team or a history there, and that's what you want, obviously, but maybe there are some markets like a Manchester or something that, can bear some fruit that you might not think about at first.
Yeah, I think right now with the NBA and all of these other leagues that are expanding internationally, this is a huge brand when you talk about professional sports. We've seen all of them do it, and it does make some sense to have the NBA send some games, of course, overseas. See what the response is, because it could mean more in the future if it goes well. All right, we got to take a quick break. That's our first hour of the show. We still have 30 minutes to go. We're going to bring in Brady Kannon from SportsGrid to break down the latest on the PGA Tour and also his new show that's about to kick off for 2025. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid. We'll be right back.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip, try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
To be able to get in the college football playoff. Of the 3 games I mentioned, if they win at least one of those, guess what? They'll finish 10-2, and they'll be in the college football playoff without fail. So I think when it all comes down to it, that's really what this is about, team success as much as it is individual success. And if Arch has this team playing well and winning 10 games, I think the Heisman numbers are going to be there to back that up just based off of the offense that they play and how they move the football.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Over a full season, is he going to be Mike Piazza? No, of course not. But I think he's going to be a guy who can help your team here. My only problem really with Alvarez is this, as Craig and I have talked about so many times, catcher is deep. If you're in a 2-catcher league, by the way, please, for the love of God, I never understood why anybody plays in 2-catcher leagues. But in a 1-catcher league, who's the catcher you're dropping?
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, Brady Kannon is with us as we get ready for a big golf tournament coming up this weekend and then getting closer to the FedEx Cup, Ryder Cup. We'll dive into all that as well. But first, as those of you know, Brady does a fantastic job handicapping the National Football League, so much so that they enter in some of the biggest contests in the country, especially out in Las Vegas. And he has a show every single week here on SportsGrid that you can catch along with former NFL wide receiver Mike Pritchard and professional handicapper James Salinas. Brady, I don't know, does Salinas want me to refer to him as a professional handicapper? I mean, is that fair? I know he's won that contest, and so I think that makes him a pro, but it seems to me, I think he would appreciate that, right? He's good with that?
Absolutely. I think professional handicapper is certainly accurate. I know he very much appreciates the title of Super Contest Champion. He was in 2015, 4 years after I won it. And very interestingly enough, James and I have become very good friends. We both hit the exact same percentage. When our team won it in 2011, it was the highest percentage in the history of the contest, 72.5%. And then 4 years later, James came around and tied it. And then another few years after that, some guy went berserk and hit like 76%. I thought those records would be like a Joe DiMaggio type thing, but you got to hit 70%, and we'll talk about that in this show. Our first episode will air on August 22nd, and then throughout the weekend on SportsGrid. So it's not just necessarily about your contest strategy, but you can use that information for your bets on Sunday and Monday and whatever. The contest, you really kind of have to hit pretty darn close, if not 70% these days to win the thing.
Yeah, definitely so. So let's get into a number of topics here. So as somebody who's very familiar with these contests and has participated before, you guys participate in the Circa contest, the Survivor one also with Circa, and then also the Westgate one. Now, as somebody that has listened to you and watched your shows through the years, Brady, the way that I would describe the performance from you guys last season would be annoyed. That would be how I would describe it, because it feels like last year, all of the prognostications went in favor of the Joes and not the pros. And so it felt like handicaps were correct and right, and things that narratives should have came true. But we saw an unprecedented amount of people who have never bet on sports in the NFL win, because the favorites won a lot last year. And so I wonder what this year is going to look like in these contests, and if things will normalize to how they did in the past, because last year was just flat out bizarre.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it was also very interesting in a Survivor perspective where we were out on the contest show after week 2. I think everybody probably remembers when the Raiders stunned the Ravens. The Ravens were leading by 10 points in the fourth quarter, and the Ravens won that game. Survivor was an absolute bloodbath for the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season. Then it finally calmed down. But you're right. A lot of favorites won last year. I remember the sports books here in Las Vegas like lost money in the month of October, which, that's unprecedented. I mean, when was the last time they lost money in the heart of a football season, the month of October? Who knows? It's probably been 20 years. So yeah, to your point, the recreational bettor and the masses got healthy last year. And typically the market corrects itself. You don't know when it's going to happen, but over time, it usually comes back the other way. Maybe 2025, 2026 will be the year of the underdog.
Yeah, it could very well be. And I know that you have Mike Pritchard along for the ride on this show, and James Salinas, who's certainly had a very good performance through the years on this as well. And what we're going to try and do here on NewsWire, Brady, is bring you in on Thursdays to talk about the lines and how they differentiate in both contests. Because as you guys talk about on your show, you may make a selection in one contest and not another based on like a half a point, like a 3.5 or a 3. And honestly, that's the only way that you can go about doing this and have success.
They give you a T-shirt when you sign up for the Westgate Super Contest. You get a T-shirt at Circa. You get like a hat, a ball cap, or something like that. And I remember the year that we won it. The slogan on the back of the T-shirt was "Every half point matters." And you're exactly right. So 3.5 and 3, we all know those are huge differences, just like 2.5 and 3. And sometimes now the Circa numbers come out for the Circa Million, Circa Survivor, all that good stuff, and the Grandissimo this year, the $100,000 entry Survivor contest that they're throwing this year. Those lines come out at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. The Super Contest lines over at the Westgate come out at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. So you've got, what is that? I don't know, 10 hours or so of difference there. And a lot of times, you know how the NFL is. News can change, markets can adjust. That's a long time in the world of the NFL and sports betting, right? So yeah, oftentimes you might get a full point difference in what the Circa line is versus the Westgate line. And then there's injuries. If all of a sudden Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, whatever, they're announced that they're not going to play. So sometimes there's advantages that you can, or there's situations that you can really take advantage of between the difference in the lines and the timing of it as well.
Yeah, and I remember last year talking to you throughout this, and you guys had a lot of 3 and 2s and 2 and 3s and 3 and 2s and 2 and for like a long time, and then it got to the point, if I remember correctly, Brady, where it was approaching the end of the season, but because you guys were doing good enough to participate in some of these mini contests, you really didn't change the strategy at all. So that'll lead to my final question on this: is it back to the well another year, just assuming that out of every 5 picks that you guys make, 3 or 4 are going to be dogs and they're going to cover? Because that's just generally been the way that you win this contest. I know you guys never really deviated from that, but it's not like that changed even in November and December. I know that things went better for you guys, but it was just a basically full season of favorites covering.
Well, a couple things. I think you have to trust your process. You go through, and I think especially through the first maybe 10, 12 weeks of the season, you don't want to panic too early. Now, there is a point in the year, and hopefully you're maybe in the top 100 or top couple hundred or something like that, into that week 10, week 12 area, week 14. There does come a point where you kind of have to make a decision, and game theory comes into the process here, where, okay, guys, we can't just necessarily, we have to try and deviate. We can't necessarily try and land on what we think are going to be the most 5 popular picks this week. We have to make up ground. So we have to go rogue and maybe take some bad numbers and take some ugly dogs or whatever. So it's a lot different. And you know this, Craig. It's not always exactly the same as the bets you're making just in your own little account here with FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever. And the 5 or 6 bets you're making on Sunday are not necessarily the same picks you're making for the contest, because you're not just trying to win the bet, you're also trying to advance up the leaderboard. You're not just playing against the sports book, you're playing against, a couple thousand other people. So that process is different, and sometimes that's hard to separate for people that are participating in contests, and hopefully that's what the show can really help you with.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, let's recap this. The Hall of Fame game is tonight, and everyone's excited to have the NFL back to watch the first 30 seconds and then not watch again. Do you even dive in at all in the preseason, Brady? Like, I feel like and I've mentioned this on the show several times this year because I forget every year, and I'm not going to forget this time around. It seems like the Ravens try to win in the preseason, so
Yes.
why not just bet them and stay away from everything else? Because isn't everything else a guess?
Yeah, and there are some other coaches. Pete Carroll is known to try and win in the preseason, and I wouldn't be surprised starting a new chapter in his life. Maybe the Raiders are a bet on. The thing with the preseason these days, I remember back in the day, you could just garner information and make great bets. That information is disseminated so quickly now, and the lines move so quickly, it's really hard to get an edge. The preseason used to be a fantastic bet. It's really difficult nowadays. So I'm with you. I'll watch for a few minutes and then probably go back to baseball.
It was. And season ticket holders, you wanted to sell season tickets. Anymore like that. All right, we'll bring Brady back talking ball.
Joaquin Neiman wins for the 5th time on the Live Golf Tour in I don't know how many starts they've had. Is it 9 at this point? Probably, maybe 10. So he's won half the time virtually.
He has, and this is again a stat. Sean Lowry is our guy who sends me live stats every week.
I love that you get live stats every week from.
It's so good.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Sadiq Bey coming off the bench. Alvarado missed a lot of time. Jordan Hawkins has had his moments. So, and remember, they picked out even a guy like Kevon Looney off the bench. So to me, they could be there. You know what? And it's crazy because last year I was so big on them, and now I'm off of them. But I'm going to say it. Fly Pelican. 7-1. Fly Pelican. Fly Pelican fly. 7-1. What's the...
So here's why JY is great, because sometimes I almost, it's tough when I sell JY, because now what will happen is, right? I mean, listen, it's the middle of the summer. You know what I mean? And what's going to happen in 2 months from now, JY's going to go, now listen, me and K-Dub love these Pelicans. I'm like, when did I say that? When did I don't remember that one, JY.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
So I drafted Aaron Jones in my dynasty league, but he's like my 4th running back, to let you know that people don't really believe in him. And by the way, when you play in a dynasty league, I always play to win this year. I don't worry about next year. I want to win now. Flags fly forever. I'll worry about next year. So, but I got Aaron Jones last year, 1138. So he's going to drop down by almost 50% not to get this total here. Yeah, I think he gets. I'll take the over.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid as we bring Brady Kannon back to talk some golf here on the PGA Tour. We're about to approach the FedEx Cup and then, of course, the Ryder Cup as well. We'll get into those subjects as well. Brady tends to have some really good opinions with some of these tournaments where a lot of the big names are not playing in, and that definitely is the case once again this week, Brady. And it feels like as we wind down over the next month with golf, there's going to be an opportunity maybe for a long shot to hit or two. It's the Wyndham Championship this week. What do you make of this course and sort of the field that we have going?
Yeah, this is a fun tournament because there's so much on the line for these players. They're trying to get into the top 70 in the FedEx Cup points in order to extend their season and get into the FedEx Cup playoffs. They're trying to jockey for position and possibly be a captain selection for the Ryder Cup team, as you mentioned. And then guys are playing for jobs. You know, if you don't end up in the top 100 in the FedEx Cup points at the end of the FedEx Cup fall, then, you know, you're trying to get a tour card. So there's really a ton going on here for these guys. And Joel Damon off to a red hot start. And this is interesting. He comes into the tournament at 101st in the FedEx Cup standings. So right on the bubble there to keep his card, obviously out of the playoff picture. And he starts off with a 61, 9 under par,
Wow.
61. And his projected standings, if he's able to go on and win this thing, would get him to 48th in the FedEx Cup point standing. So that all of a sudden is a whole new world of postseason and everything else for Joel Damon. Off to a great start. And it looks like we have a full-fledged birdie fest on our hands. You've got Alex Noren at 8 under, the defending champ Aaron Rai at 7 under. People are going nuts early on here at Sedgefield Country Club.
All right, so that's a good sign because we like seeing good golf. That's definitely happening. And before tee time, Brady did, take a look at some of the field, and here were some of the odds as far as the favorites go. Not surprising, Matt Fitzpatrick is leading the pack here at 20-1. He was the favorite going in. I'll have to get an update on that. Also, Aaron Ray, as you mentioned, Ben Griffin, who's had a nice year, Keegan Bradley, Robert McIntyre at 30-1. Were you in on any of these to start?
Yeah, I played Ben Griffin for first round leader. We'll see how that turns out. He's going to tee off here pretty soon. I did play Robert McIntyre for an outright win and also Akshay Bhatia. McIntyre is yet to tee off. Bhatia was pretty pedestrian. He shot 2 under par, which kind of feels like even par with the way these guys are going. But I did play Harry Hall, who got off to a great start. He finished at 5 under par in the opening, 4 under par. So he's currently in the top 15. Played Chris Kirk. He started at 4 under par. And Christian Bezaden, who started out at 5 under par. So I've got a handful of guys that are sitting pretty here after their first round. And Ben Griffin, who I mentioned I played for first round leader, just birdied his first hole. So he's got 8 more to go to tie Joel Damon for that first round lead.
All right, let's get the latest at the FedEx Cup. Of course, that's the big event as we're talking about here, getting into that championship. But, clearly what we have seen through the years is just because you win a lot of majors, Brady, doesn't necessarily mean you win the FedEx Cup. And that's what the odds are showing us here. Scottie Scheffler's a heavy favorite at 2-1, but Rory McIlroy is right there at plus 550. We have Fleetwood at 14-1 and Xander Schauffele at 15-1 as well. Is it an open shut case for Scottie Scheffler to just take it all and win the FedEx Cup and go about his business here in 2025? Or is there a chance Rory, Tommy, or someone else can get him?
It's really not open and closed shut case here for Scottie Scheffler. And probably the main reason is, Craig, is because the PGA Tour has gotten rid of the handicap, if you will, the starting strokes. If you remember, they awarded the guy who was number 1 in the FedEx Cup points with a 10 under par start, and then the second guy started at 8 under par and 7 and on down the line. And that system was flawed and it took a lot of the drama out of it. And so now they've gotten rid of all that. The top 30 guys on the points list go into East Lake Golf Club, and it's every man for himself. There's no starting strokes or anything like that. And you could be 30th on the points list, win that tournament over the course of 4 days, and you're the FedEx Cup champion. So, that certainly brings a little more randomness into it and some more chances for the guys that are starting on a level playing field rather than Scottie and Rory, whoever else, starting with an advantage. The 2 guys that have probably had the most success at East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta, where they play the Tour Championship every year, are Rory McIlroy and Xander Schauffele. They've been outstanding at this golf course, both of them. So I'd probably be looking at them first. Scottie won it, I think it was last year. That's the only time he's ever won at that golf course before. And again, he was starting ahead of the pack with the starting strokes. But Rory and Xander will be a couple guys I'll be taking a hard look at. Obviously, they've had tremendous years. We kind of have forgotten about what a good year Rory McIlroy had with what Scottie's done lately. Xander, of course, was injured for a number of weeks, but he's a real horse for this course coming up in a few weeks. So I'll be looking at those guys for sure.
And then we'll cap it off with the Ryder Cup. Brady, not a surprise when you have the best golfer in the world for Team USA. The Ryder Cup's going to be favored for Team USA to win. They're minus 140. Europe is plus 160. A tie is 11-1. So in my mind, I'm trying to picture, Brady, what the odds look like the last few years. Was Team USA always this significant of a favorite going into the Ryder Cup? I don't recall. You'll have to tell me.
When they play on American soil, and I don't know if Europe has ever been a favorite, really, come to think of it, even when it was 2 years ago when they played in Italy, and I believe Europe was a small dog and won handily. I want to say they were maybe plus 110, plus 115. But it's gone back and forth. Whoever's playing on home soil as of late, in the last handful of Ryder Cups or so, has gone on to win. So not surprising to see with this one being at Bethpage Black in New York. You know that crowd will just be raucous, rooting for the home team. Not surprising to see them, minus 140, minus 135. I think I've maybe seen as high as minus 150. I'm very tempted to bet on the dog because Europe is so good at this competition. But again, it's hard to go against the home field advantage, if you will, where we've seen the home team win, again, the last handful of Ryder Cups.
All right, Brady, appreciate the time as always. And you and I will talk next week as first week of the NFL preseason officially begins next week. Thanks again for coming on.
Go Chargers, man.
Brady Kannon with us, throwing in a Chargers pick. Man, for me, if anybody comes on any network, even ours, and says they love a pick tonight in the NFL preseason, I think I'm just canceling that person just for sheer lunacy. We'll be back after this.
Joaquin Neiman wins for the 5th time on the Live Golf Tour. And I don't know how many starts they've had. Is it 9 at this point? Probably, maybe 10. So he's won half the time virtually.
He has, and this is again a stat. Sean Lowry's our guy who sends me live stats every week.
I love that you get live stats every week from.
It's so good.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Sadiq Bey come off the bench. Alvarado missed a lot of time. Jordan Hawkins has had his moments. So, and remember, they picked out even a guy like Kevon Looney off the bench. So to me, they could be there. You know what? And it's crazy because last year I was so big on them, and now I'm off of them. But I'm going to say it. Fly Pelican. 7-1. Fly Pelican. Fly Pelican fly. 7-1. Worth it.
Here's why JY is great, because sometimes I almost, it's tough when I sell JY, because now what will happen is, right? I mean, listen, it's the middle of the summer. You know what I mean? And what's going to happen in 2 months from now, JY's going to go, now listen, me and K-Dub love these Pelicans. I'm like, when did I say that? I don't remember that one. JY.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
So I drafted Aaron Jones in my dynasty league, but he's like my 4th running back, to let you know that people don't really believe in him. And by the way, when you play in a dynasty league, I always play to win this year. I don't worry about next year. I want to win now. Flags fly forever. I'll worry about next year. So, but I got Aaron Jones last year, 1138. So he's going to drop that down by almost 50% not to get this total here. Yeah, I think he gets. I'll take the over.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. The Major League Baseball trade deadline is coming up in just a bit. We've got a couple of other trades. Looks like the Minnesota Twins are saying sayonara to this year. They've traded Harrison Bader to the Philadelphia Phillies. Also, relief pitcher Brock Stewart to the Los Angeles Dodgers. So the Twins appear to be looking toward the future. All right, also looking toward the future, the Dallas Cowboys. We'll hear from Brian Schottenheimer and what he thinks of his team's practices. Also, the Baltimore Ravens learning to swim from a familiar name. and a trade yesterday in Major League Baseball that we've never seen before. It's time we wrap up this edition of the show with some last licks. All right, let's start off with the new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, Brian Schottenheimer, taking a different approach maybe than his predecessors had, especially Mike McCarthy, who's known for being a tough guy, but maybe not for doing exactly what Schottenheimer did. In Oxnard, California yesterday, Schottenheimer came to practice and said, guys, kind of sick and tired of seeing you guys punching each other in the face, literally, and made the team run, kind of like a college or maybe a high school or maybe a JV team. You don't see this a lot in the National Football League, but of course, this is what happens after a week of training camp. The players are sick of playing against each other and looking against each other. They want to hit somebody else. But look, Schottenheimer taking a more serious approach. I mean, look, this hire has gotten more scrutiny than any other head coaching hire, I think, in the offseason in the NFL. But we'll see if it ends up working as the Cowboys open up their NFL preseason schedule next week. Meanwhile, the Baltimore Ravens are back at it, and they're in the swimming pool, right? Yeah, I mean, this is part of the deal. Teams, generally speaking, have their players go in the pool to rehab, move their legs around. But some of them, it's just to swim. And in fact, we found out that there were some players who actually did not know how to swim. This is not all that uncommon. There are some people that don't live in the north. They don't swim a lot. They don't know how to swim. And so what they decided to do is bring in a swim instructor, and none other than one of the greatest swimmers, if not the very best of all time, gold Olympic champion in the best way. It's Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps is going to be helping the Ravens out and did it online, showed them some little tips and techniques, and maybe even pays a visit to Ravens camp as well. So Michael Phelps, arguably the fastest swimmer of all time and known as that, going to be helping a team in the National Football League. Now, needless to say, as somebody who's giving a public service announcement, make sure your kids know how to swim if you have the ability to, because it's very important moving forward. All right, in Major League Baseball, a couple days ago, we saw Sir Anthony Dominguez traded, and we thought that that was one of the coolest things ever, right? Like Dominguez goes, and he goes from one team to the next, goes from Baltimore to Toronto, and he ends up pitching against his old team. How about this one on for size? Tyler and Taylor Rogers, relief pitchers in Major League Baseball, who I confuse a lot. One is a righty, one is a lefty. Tyler and Taylor end up pitching, both very, very good pitchers in Major League Baseball. Both got traded on the same day yesterday. That's not something you often see. The Giants traded one. I believe it was the Reds, was it, that traded the other? No, it wasn't the Reds. I don't even remember, to the New York Mets. Let me give you the numbers here. So they're both basically pitchers in Major League Baseball, and they both were born on December 17th, 1990 as twins. And they both were traded on July 30th, 2025. In the history of baseball, there have never been brothers that have been traded on the same day, and that is something that ended up happening yesterday. Now, we still have several hours until the Major League Baseball trade deadline is complete, but if you join us on the show on Friday, we'll recap all of the trades and tell you exactly who went where. We'll give you the updated odds on the FanDuel Sportsbook and tell you who made the biggest jumps, who were the biggest fallers, who were the buyers, the sellers, because it does seem to me, although there have been some trades, there's still going to be a lot of significant ones between now and when the deadline hits coming up shortly. Also, for more information on our streaming here at SportsGrid, and if you're looking for a second screen during the Hall of Fame game tonight or any of the Major League Baseball action throughout the season, and with college and pro football coming up, take out your phone and scan this QR code. It is the SportsGrid app. It's available for iOS and Android. The SportsGrid app is such a great secondary screen and streaming product that I highly recommend that you hit it, download it, and you can learn all about the updated odds in all of the games as well. Our guests on the show today were Brady Kannon, Matt Latovsky of Sporting News, Tom Vecchio, of course, of SportsGrid, and we also had Michael DeCourcy of Sporting News. Our director, as always, is Luke. My producer is Frank, and I'm Craig Mish. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day here on SportsGrid. Make sure you tune back in tomorrow morning, or afternoon, actually, at 12 o'clock Eastern, and we will have you all covered for the Major League Baseball trade deadline and a full recap as to what happened in the first game in the NFL preseason. Have a great rest of your day and night. See you then.